You covered up all my screen. Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. And we're glad to have you join our Texas Corn Producers Board second installment of Corn Conversations. I'm David Gibson, Executive Director for Texas Corn Producers. You may know that Texas Corn Producers serves the state's corn farmers through two organizations: our Texas Corn Producers Board, funded by our corn checkoff, and Texas Corn Producers Association, funded by separate corn farmer memberships. During today's event, we're going to share a glimpse at what our organization's recent youth education efforts that are being made possible through our checkoff. A few quick housekeeping things to note. This is a webinar format, so we are unable to see or hear those participating. We will have time for questions following the speaker's presentation. To submit a question through the Zoom app, you may press the Q&A button at the lower section of your screen and type in your question. If you are participating by phone audio only, there are two ways to submit questions. One is by email to cornconvo@texascorn.org, or by calling our office at 806-763-2676. Today's conversation is being recorded and will be made available on our website at texascorn.org. Here to introduce today's speaker is Stephen Yoder, a farmer from Dalhart, Texas, and he is chairman of our Texas Corn Producers Board Advertising, Promotion, and Education Committee. Go ahead, Steve.
Hello. Planting a foundation of agricultural knowledge in today's youth is an important part of helping future generations of Texans understand the role on their plate at dinner time and even beyond in their everyday lives. This is the first step in building an open dialogue on the importance of our domestic food supply, sound farm policy, conservation, and agricultural's role in contributing to our society. Today, I'm glad to have with us Dr. Leigha Pate, our educational contractor and a Texas science teacher, as well as Hannah Dast, the education director for Texas Corn Producers. Hannah Dast joined our organization at the beginning of the year and has been instrumental in organizing and getting our corn in the classroom curriculum in the hands of Texas teachers across the state. Dr. Leigha Pate is a 5th grade teacher at Plainview ISD. She has a broad foundation of knowledge in both elementary education and agriculture. Pate has taught 4th and 5th grade science in the Texas Panhandle for 16 years, while also earning her doctorate in agricultural education in 2018 from Texas Tech University and Texas A&M University's joint Doc at a Distance program. Prior to pursuing a career in education, Pate worked with the Texas Boll Weevil Eradication Foundation after completing her bachelor's and master's degrees in agriculture at Texas A&M. She lives near Plainview with her husband Derek and their 2 sons. Dr. Pate and Hannah, thank you for joining us today. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you for that introduction. We appreciate it. A little bit about what we have been up to in getting this off the ground. Corn in the Classroom is a K-5 curriculum that meets science TEKS, which are the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. So our Texas standards. This allows teachers to work this into their classroom and not have to use it as like supplemental instruction, but really get to work that into the year. This program came out of the idea that working with students when they're young will give them a broad foundation of agriculture that will grow with them and hopefully help them to be more informed consumers in the future. This summer, we have had the opportunity to work with teachers from seven different regions across Texas through education service centers. And we have done online professional development. It's looked a little bit different than what we expected, kind of like a lot of things have lately. But we have worked with a lot of great teachers. We have several more events coming up where they get to learn more about what we're doing and practical tips to put that in their classrooms. So today, Dr. Leigha Pate is going to give you a little bit of a taste of what that looks like, as well as give you some more information on the curriculum. So with that, I'll hand it over to her.
All right, thank you, Hannah. Okay, so today is going to be a little bit different setup. Of course, we're not face-to-face and hands-on, so I'm gonna just give you a little bit of background about our curriculum and show you how it's set up, and then I will show you a few examples from some of the lessons that we have. And I will say that even though these lessons are designed as kindergarten through 5th grade, each lesson or each grade level lesson could easily be adapted to other grade levels. As a 5th grade teacher, I have used even some of the kindergarten lessons in my classroom. And so as we're looking at this, if you're a teacher or if you know some teachers, please pass on this information to them. And so I'm going to be switching back and forth just a little bit on my screen. And so I'm going to share my screen with you. And so just to start, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on how we came up with this curriculum. And there's me, I'm the mad scientist, that's my alter ego. But that just reiterates the fact that my passions are elementary education and agriculture, and I really feel strongly that our students need to understand where their food and fiber come from. And so I really make an effort to put agriculture lessons in my classroom anytime I can. And so this curriculum originally came from Kansas Corn. They were nice enough to provide us with this curriculum that they had already developed. But of course, it was aligned to Kansas. And so the lovely ladies listed there at the bottom took this curriculum from Kansas and implemented it into their classrooms and pilot tested it for us. And during that time, they aligned it to our Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. And many of those are in science, math, and language arts. So as you look at lessons, you can see all the different alignment areas. Again, they are aligned by grade level, but you can adapt anything to make it fit the needs of your students. And then just very briefly, I'll show you what the website looks like. Hopefully. Oh, there it is. And so here is what the website looks like with the elementary curriculum. And once you get into the lessons, you can click on each grade level separately. And then this is what they look like. And I really appreciate the hard work that went into making these very visually appealing. And they're also very well organized. So as you're using them in your classrooms, they should be fairly easy to use. And so we have a table of contents. There's our list of contributors again. And then each lesson, no matter what grade level, you will have a unit overview. We have the list of Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, your learning objectives. And this part is great. If you have to write your learning objectives on the board, then you already have them written out for you. Materials that you may need as you're doing some of these investigations. Some key questions, which is great for our first year or beginning teachers. And then it gets into the lesson procedures. And so each grade level lesson will have all of this on there. And then at the end of each lesson is an area for assessments. Okay, so I'm just going to go briefly through each grade level and kind of just hit some of the high points. And so the kinder and first grade lesson is put together. There's a little bit of differentiation between kinder and first grade. So there are the TEKs that go along with this grade level. And so those will be listed at the beginning of each lesson when you print those out. And then that gets into our objectives. So in kinder and first grade, we're having our students identify different corn products. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a minute so that you can see me a little bit bigger. And so you would have students looking at different products. If you have the products themselves, of course, that's always handy. And if you don't, you can print out pictures. And I just Googled some pictures that were, some were corn products and some were not. And so in kinder and first grade, you would be holding up these different products. And then students, there's some signs that go along with your lesson, and so they can identify either it's not corn or it is corn. And if you're not sure which products have corn in them and which ones do not, there is a list available for you. And so you can look through that list, and that will help you identify products that are corn or do contain corn. So it looks like this. And so it's a really great list. And it even gives you a brief explanation. And there may be some things on here that really surprise you. And I think that's what makes it fun. When students can see something that really shocks and surprises them, they tend to grasp onto that better. And so just a few examples of some things that have corn in them. Of course, yummy marshmallows. And so if this is one of your products, you better have some extra ones because you're going to have to share these. So some marshmallows, these contain corn. Toothpaste, and this may be one that surprises them. They may not think that toothpaste would have corn in it. Hand sanitizer, which I'm sure we have lots of this available right now. Some chocolate syrup, and you'll notice that I have some labels on these, some letters. And so for first grade, you can actually set this up as a gallery walk and have your product set out, and then students will go through and they will just circle. And so this is part of the first grade lesson. They will also be investigating corn plants and trying to determine which part of that corn plant is the seed. And so you'll be planting some different parts of the corn plant. And so, you would have like the kernel, the tassel, maybe the silk. And so you would have students planting these, or you could even do this as a demonstration. And so they would grow, and the students would make observations to determine which one of those plant parts grew into the corn plant. And all of our lessons have materials where students can record their information. And so for our little guys in kinder and first grade, they would just be drawing or illustrating a picture. So we keep it pretty basic for those little guys that aren't writing very well yet. And then they can copy the dates and the days of growth. So they can still record information just like the big kids and just like a scientist, but it's down to their level. And so the kinder and first grade lesson with having students sort through the different products is something that I actually use with my fifth graders as an introduction to their corn unit. And so they like to identify those different things too. And I really like the shock factor when you can get something in that they might not be thinking about containing corn. And one of my favorite ones, I have to share this one, is Windex. And this actually has 5 different ingredients derived from corn. So this is a really neat one. And so that is primarily the first grade lesson. And then as part of the assessment piece for that one, there are some pages. This is actually the answer key, but you would have students cut these out and then lay them out in order of growth. You could even use this to differentiate, but this page can also be used with other grade levels as an assessment tool. Here's the one without the answers. And so again, try to mix these up a little bit and use them in different grade levels. Then moving on to second grade. Let me share my screen again. So in second grade, they get to start planting some seeds. And again, here are the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. And this time we have some math included. So it's not just science this time, it's also math. And so in third grade, I'm sorry, in second grade, we have students planting and trying to figure out what different conditions might affect the planting of their seeds. And so a really fun thing to do is if you can get your hands on some soil wafers, these are a lot of fun and the kids really enjoy looking at these. So as you're planting, there are instructions within the curriculum that shows you how to plant your corn seeds. So I'm just going to show you really quickly what it looks like when we use our soil wafers to plant some corn seed. And so hopefully, so here's my empty container. I drop my soil wafer in. And as you add water to these, they start to expand. It's kind of like the washcloths that the kids had that look like a little hockey puck. And they get wet and they start to expand and grow into this washcloth. Well, this is the same thing, just with soil. So as I pour some water in, and I always tell everyone, just do a little bit of water at a time, and it really starts to expand and fill that container. So students really enjoy seeing that soil expanding like that. It's a lot of fun. And so as you get some soil in your containers, then you'll follow the instructions that are included and plant your seeds. And so the corn seeds go down about 1 inch into the soil. And you'll want to be sure to cover them up. And then you have seeds that are ready to investigate and make some observations. And so in second grade, you want to have students determining whether soil, water, or sunlight will affect seed growth. And again, all of our lessons include some pages to record data. And so here's the second grade booklet. And this includes a place where they can record some information on what seeds need to grow. Once they get their seeds planted, then they can make some observations. Here's a page that helps them set up their experimental design. And by fifth grade, that's a pretty difficult teak for fifth graders. but a very important one. So if they can start something like this in second grade, it'll be beneficial for them later on. So they can plan everything out on this page. There's several pages to make observations. And then another page for them to make some conclusions. And I always tell my kids, if you're going to tell me why something happens, you need to have some evidence to back it up. So this gives you a place where your students can do that. That one is second grade. I'm going to snag the third grade booklet. Third grade is very similar to the second grade lessons. And let me share those teaks with you quickly. So these are the teaks for our third grade lessons. So we have a lot of language arts beginning to be covered in our third grade lessons. We also have some math. And in this case, we're doing a lot of measurement. And so third grade is very similar to second grade in that students are coming up with the investigational design, the experimental design. And so if they've had this in second grade, it can be used as review. If they did not have it in second grade, then it is new and you may have to give them a little bit more guidance. But again, we are looking at how our seeds grow and survive. We are going to test some different conditions that we grow our seeds under. And so again, here's our packet that goes along with this unit. And so for third grade, this page has our students starting to write out some steps of how to design this investigation. So they're really going to have to think about each little thing that needs to happen. And because we are getting more precise in third grade, they're making measurements. It's not just half a container full of soil, it's 20 grams of soil or 10 grams of soil, whatever it may be. And so they're having to use some science tools. So this will get them using some of those important tools that they will need to use pretty much from third grade on out. And then down here at the bottom, I really like this because they have to illustrate, again, what this lab or what this experiment is going to look like. And this is an excellent skill for students to know, because if they can imagine what it's going to look like in their head, then when they have those questions on STAR testing, then they're able to picture what that's going to look like and even draw it out on their test and then figure out the answer to the question. This is one of my favorite pages, and I would absolutely use this for any grade level. And so this is how to make observations. So how do I observe and how do I make quality observations? So depending on your grade level, you might want to use this just as a guide for you as a teacher to really talk through how you make good observations. For the older grade level, I would even use this in 5th grade. I would have them fill this out as groups and put it in their science notebooks. And so if we're making good observations, we're using all of our senses. And if we're going to have quality, we need to be using measurements and we need to be precise. And so these are some things that you would want to discuss with your students as you're going through this, this particular grade level. And so then you will go ahead and plant your seeds once again. And even before, I should have said this in 2nd grade, you want to have a control, which means that you have one that's getting soil, water, everything just like it should, so that you have something to compare to the ones that you are changing a variable to. So if you put one, if you're testing sunlight and you put one in the closet, you certainly want to have something to compare that to. If you are testing the water condition, then you would have water in one and not in the other. And so make sure that you are using a control so that the kids have something to compare it to. And then on the third grade observation papers, they will actually record how much soil they used. So they're going to be using some science tools here. How much water, how many seeds. You always want to use the same amount of seeds for each child, each individual, or each group, depending on how you do this. And I always have my students use more than one seed because sometimes they don't grow. So I would use 2 or 3. But again, if you use 2 seeds, then all of your kids use 2 seeds. If you use 3, all of them use 3. So they can record their observations here on this page. And you have several pages that they can record observations on. And then you have a section where they can make some conclusions. And again, they are making conclusions and showing evidence of how they came up with that conclusion. And this is, again, an important skill and important vocabulary. They should know what it means to show evidence. And then here's the page that shows you how to plant your corn. Right now, this is only available in the 3rd grade lesson, but by all means, you can go back and find this and use it for any grade level. And so that is 3rd grade. And, you know, definitely after this, please go and look at all of these lessons. They are well written and very detailed, and so they will give you much more information than I can in this short amount of time. But hopefully this is a little teaser for you and it'll get you interested in some of the things we're doing. All right, so moving to 4th grade. This 4th grade lesson really could be used at any grade level. For the older kids, you would want to do it as an individual. In the younger grade levels, you may want to do it more as a demonstration. And so in 4th grade, we are starting to look at structures and functions of the plants or their adaptations. And this one's really a lot of fun for kids. So here are the teaks. So we're getting into a lot of readiness standards. And I will touch on in 4th grade, the properties of soil. That's the only place that this teak is taught. So be sure to get that in. There's a few more science and some language arts. So we're having them do some writing. Okay, and so in 4th grade, there we go. In 4th grade, we're planting in a couple of different ways and really starting to look at the different parts of the plant and how they help the plant to survive. And we're also looking at what a plant looks like as it's starting to grow and germinate. And so there's lots of vocabulary there. I always call them fancy science words. So they're gonna learn some new fancy science words to go along with this. And so you would, for the first part, you would have them plant a seed again. And let me remind you too, when you plant corn seeds, be sure that they are not chemically treated. Just because they're blue or pink and they're pretty, that is not one you want to use. So make sure that you're using seed that is not chemically treated. And so for the first part, they would plant this seed and they're going to make observations and watch it grow for a little while. And this is actually going to be used to do some comparison down the road. So again, with 4th grade, there are lots of pages for you to record information on. And so this goes along with the first part, where they are really thinking about all the different stages of plant growth. And you can, again, go back to that kindergarten lesson where you cut out all the little pictures and put them in order and have them even in 4th grade, use that to help them answer this page. So they are drawing pictures of now and making predictions, which is another good skill for them to know, especially in the older elementary grades. So they're going to predict what their plant will look like later on. And then in 4th grade, we're not making as many observations when we plant, because hopefully by now they've seen the corn plant growing. And so we're just making a few observations over about 3 weeks so that they can just see the plant growth. This time we're not changing the condition. And so that's the first part of the 4th grade unit. The second part is one of my absolute favorites. And so we will lead students into thinking about, does a plant need moisture or water? And of course it does, but we want them to come up with the idea that we don't necessarily have to use water. You know, are there some other liquids that we could use to plant our corn seed? And so you can have your students bring different liquids. Just be very careful and specify what is appropriate to bring. I had a student bring something not so appropriate one time, so be very clear if you have students bringing the different liquids. I'm going to reach over here and grab them. Or you can bring your own, maybe hit up your teacher friends for some different things. And so I have some tea, I have like a little fruity drink, you might have some Cokes. So whatever it is that you want to test. And so to set this up, you just put a half paper towel, or even a 1/4 of a paper towel, depending on how big it is, in a plastic baggie. And then I like to put staples in mine. So I staple across the bottom, and that does 2 things for us. For one, if it's like this, your seeds aren't sitting in the bottom of the baggie in a big puddle of water. And as it starts to grow, and this one's getting a little funky, but you can see the roots growing better. So it's a better visual for them to see if you set it up this way. And this one, I mean, you can even see them starting to grow on the back. So this is how I've always set this up whenever I grow any kind of seeds in baggies. And so you would set that up and label it, and then you just pour whichever liquid the student chooses in your baggie. And I would suggest using a pipette or a medicine dropper so they're not getting too much in there. So here I have my bag with my corn. And I'm going to pour a little bit of tea in there. And you want to make sure that your baggie or that your paper towel is getting nice and moist. And I probably need just a little bit more in that one. But I would leave it open and hang it up around my classroom, and then have students doing some observations. And so in 4th grade, here is the page to set up this investigation. And you'll notice it follows the scientific method pretty well. We have our research question, and you want to talk to them about what a good research question looks like. You know, if you can set it up and test it, then it's a good research question. You have your type of data, so you can talk to them about quantitative and qualitative data, because they should be taking both if they're making good observations. The variables, and the one that we are changing this time would be the different liquids. Your control, teachers are actually asked to set up a control at the first that you can use. And then we're making more predictions, good skill, predictions and hypotheses. And once all of that is set up, here's another observation page. They're making illustrations of what they see, and then they'll write out a description. Then moving into the 3rd part of 4th grade, they will actually take the plant that they grew in their container and the plants that they grew in their baggies, and they're going to be looking at all the parts that they can see now in their plants that grew. And so they'll identify the different structures like roots and talk about the function to obtain water. So this really gets into adaptations. You will have students draw out the different parts of the corn plant and label them. And then they have to write. They have to write a good description. And in 4th grade, we should be using some excellent writing skills. And even in science class, they have to follow writing rules. They don't get to be lazy just because they're in science class. So make sure that they are doing some good examples of writing. And there are some pages you can use as a pre and post test. And you can also have students using this as they draw out their different corn pictures. And I even like to have them do those big corn pictures on a piece of construction paper, or not construction, butcher paper. And then these cards are in the back of your lessons. And you can have these kids lay them out next to whatever they've drawn. And then it's a good self-check because there are definitions on the back so they can read and make sure that they labeled the correct part. And so that is 4th grade. And then we get into 5th grade. So quickly, I will share what 5th grade TEKS look like. I really like the 5th grade lessons because it gets students doing more research. And in 5th grade, we really should be looking more into research type activities because once they get into middle school, they're going to be doing more of that. And so here are the TEKS for 5th grade. And in 5th grade, across Texas, really all of the 5th graders have had a lot of difficulty in these particular TEKS. And so if we can find new ways to teach these and give them some different perspectives, I really feel like that will help us moving into next year's STAR test or whatever it may end up being. And so to start this one, you get to take a field trip, preferably to a cornfield, so that you can look at all of the different organisms and how they interact. And of course, if you can't make it out to a cornfield, you can always go look at the playground or the front yard of the school or whatever it may be so that kids can see the different organisms interacting together. And so there's a wonderful page that gives you some guiding questions so that you can ask students what's going on in that particular ecosystem. And then they get to do some research. And so you would assign students an organism from a cornfield, and then they would do some research and fill out some different information. What kind of organism is it? How could they classify it? Where does it live? So some different things like that. And they will be hanging these index cards up around the room. I really feel like anytime they work this hard, they need to display their work. And so they will display all of these index cards where they've done some research. And then you'll have students really looking at each one of the organisms and trying to classify them into certain categories. And the idea here is to lead them into, is it a producer, a consumer, or a decomposer? And so you would have them move their cards around and put them in their different groups. You could even go more in depth and start having them look at if it's a consumer, is it a carnivore, omnivore, herbivore? And then there's a great assessment piece here, this one right here. And they can go through and label each organism according to what it is. I really like this page as well. Then you can take students outside with their cards and you take some yarn, and the teacher is going to be the sun. And so the teacher would start with a card. Let me grab it. So you have some cards like this available in the back of your 5th grade unit. And there's all kinds of great pictures of different organisms. Here's invasive. We talk about invasive species in 5th grade. So that gives you a whole another topic there. Here's a deer. And so there's all kinds of great pictures. And so the teacher actually starts out as the sun. Let me grab my yarn real quick. So hopefully you can take students outside to do this. And so this will show what a food web looks like because you're starting to make those connections. The teacher takes the string. And so I'm the sun, and then you get kids talking about, okay, the sun gives energy to, and then we pass it on to a producer. And then that kid has the string and they pass it on to the next person and so on. And so all the instructions for this are included in your lesson. And so this will really give them a good visual of what a food web looks like. And then the last part of the 5th grade unit has them doing some more research, because again, in 5th grade, they really need to be doing that research. And I enjoy this one. I've done it before with my higher GT kids. I've done it with my whole class. And so they're going to be doing some investigation into different STEM or agriculture-based careers. And really, we're getting more and more into the STEM side of science. And so this is a great way to get them involved in some of this. And so they would fill out this paper. You could either assign them an agriculture-based job, or they could come up with it on their own. They will describe what they do in that job, in that particular career, what kind of salary or pay they would get, what kind of preparation they would need. You know, is it a trade school? Is it a four-year college? What do they need? And then I always call these fun facts. So it's just little facts that they come up with that they thought were interesting that they can share. And then I like to use this and make a poster out of it. And so students could, you know, take that, make a big poster, put it up out in the hallway, and really show off their work. So here's maybe an example, you know, make it colorful and pretty and interesting. And then I actually like to have students do what I call a gallery walk or a scoop. Here's another example if you wanted to differentiate and have students just glue some things on. And so I really like to have my students go out and look at each other's work, and either set up like a quiz or an exit ticket and ask them about the different careers that they might like to choose, or you know, what they have questions about still. And so it's a really good way to kind of get them interacting together. And so all of these lessons, besides being able to kind of adapt them to different grade levels depending on your needs, these are also really adaptable to distance learning. And I know with all the things going on right now, we're very uncertain about what our next school year is going to look like. And so you can set these up, you know, for kindergarten and first grade, there's a digital story. And so they could very easily look at that digitally as you're looking at the different products. If you don't have the signs, if you're doing a Zoom meeting, you can have them do thumbs up, thumbs down. So thumbs up if it has corn, thumbs down if it doesn't. Any of the lessons that you're planting things, you can set those up as a demonstration and show that to them virtually every few days, and then just have them record some observations maybe at home. If you have the opportunity to have students come up to the school to gather materials, you could set up some seed planting kits for them and just have a baggie with some seeds and maybe some soil wafers, and then they could take it home and plant those and have them grow and make observations. And a lot of these conclusion type pages they could do at home with their parents. So there's a lot of options there for them to do some things virtually if that's what it comes to, but this is a really great curriculum. I've really enjoyed presenting it to teachers and using it in class. I was a little disappointed I didn't get to use it this year because we went into quarantine before I got a chance to use it, but I have used it in the past and my kids enjoyed it and I think they get a lot out of it. And I really feel strongly about if we can get some agriculture into our science classrooms, then we are benefiting our students. And so, you know, if you have questions, let us know and I will help you with this any way I can. But we appreciate you listening in on this and we're very excited about this. We're having a lot of fun presenting this and working through it. So let's see, who are we back to now? David?
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Pate. Appreciate the work you've done on this along with our in-house staff and bringing something that's good for our students to talk about agriculture and where our food comes from. At the end of the day, during this COVID event, we've seen empty grocery shelves, and this kind of will help highlight what it takes to fill those shelves back. I was just wondering, and as we begin to look for questions, this material that you presented, I believe this is available for teachers in the first up through the 5th grade. Hannah, you might talk about what teachers would need to do in order to get material and maybe some of the kids.
Yes, this is available on our website, texascorn.org. You can find all of the lessons under the Education tab. And then for those who attend our workshops, those are also listed on that same page online. And as we have more come up, we'll update that with new locations and that kind of thing. People who attend those will receive kits with supplies for their classrooms. So things like seeds and soil wafers and pots and several different things to complete those lessons that Leigha just demonstrated for us.
Okay, if any of our attendees wish to ask a question, remember you can do it through the question and answer section there at the bottom of the screen, or call our office at 806-763-2676. So we're open to any questions. Steve, do you have any questions or comments you'd like to add at this time?
Get unmuted here. Yeah, I guess I was kind of curious. Does it typically take like a week of lessons to get through the curriculum, or is it? I guess that probably depends on what grade it is too.
Yes, it will depend a little bit on what grade level it is, but if they are planting anything, they really need to give themselves about 3 weeks of observation time. And that does not mean that they have to check it every day, but they'll want to set aside some time every 2 or 3 days to check on it and make those observations. Good question.
Okay, well, at this time, if anyone has a question, be sure and let us know. We're available here in our office. 806-763-2676 would be a good way to reach Hannah. And any other questions at that point, she'll pass on, and she and Leigha would be able to work with y'all. So in order to wrap up here, really appreciate Dr. Pate and Hannah for taking your time today to do this on behalf of the Texas Corn Producers Board. We're very excited to put these lessons out into the schools and put some things in front of our kids about agriculture so they can see the plants grow, that it don't just fall out of the sky as it goes onto those grocery shelves. So we appreciate everyone that logged in today. And again, if you have questions, you can call our office or go through the Corn Convo at texascorn.org and reference this event to have any assistance in getting you details on the curriculum or other educational material we're offered. So with that, we thank you for participating today, and hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Thank you.